Hello again. Home Secretary Priti Patel is portrayed in the press as something of a hardliner on immigration, somebody determined to crack down on asylum seekers entering the country illegally and to strengthen Britain's borders so that we can limit and control who enters the country. Now, of course, all politicians are liars and cheats, so it would be a little unfair to single out Patel for criticism on those grounds alone. Even by the ordinary standards, though, our Home Secretary is really in a class of her own when it comes to double dealing and hypocrisy. Take her concerns about the flotilla of dinghies and small boats which cross the English Channel, bringing illegal immigrants into England from France. In the 2 years from the autumn of 2018 until last autumn, there might have been perhaps 20,000 people entering the country in this way, maybe a few more. And I will be the first to admit that it is high time it was stopped, which wouldn't be all that difficult really. Patel talks a lot about the tough measures which she will take to put an end to this kind of thing, and I dare say that she might do it one day. Let us look though about what she is celebrating elsewhere before we begin to get the idea that she is in some way on our side as far as immigration is concerned. 5 years ago, Britain voted to leave the European Union. One of the main reasons people voted to leave was so that Britain could take back control of its borders. There was a lot of concern about immigration at the time. The referendum was held in 2016. At that time, in 2016, fewer than 3 million Europeans were living in Britain. I give a link to this information in the description to this video. Have we all got that? Fewer than 3 million people from Europe were living in Britain when the referendum was held in which it was decided to leave Europe 5 years ago. What is the situation now, 5 years later, do you think? Well, we cannot do better than to quote the British government's own website, which tells us what both the Home Secretary and Kevin Foster MP, the Minister for Future Borders and Immigration, have to say about immigration from Europe. I give a link to the government website, the relevant section, above in the description to this video, of course. Priti Patel says there, "It is fantastic news that over 5 million applications have been made to this hugely successful EU settlement scheme. This is a scheme which allows those Europeans who have been living here to stay for good and become British citizens with all that this entails." But just a minute, I hear you say. I thought you said there were fewer than 3 million when we held the referendum. That's right, but the settlement scheme applies not only to the millions of people who were already living here when the referendum was held, but also those millions of people who rushed to come and live in Britain after the referendum, up until the end of last year, in fact. The Ministers for Future Borders and Immigration explains, "It's great news that there have been more than 5 million applications to the EU settlement scheme ahead of the 30th of June deadline. My message to European citizens and their family members is simple. Apply now and join the millions who have already been through the simple process to secure their status. There's plenty of support available, and the new funding announced today means no stone will be left unturned in ensuring everyone gets the help they need." Do these sound to you like two people who are trying to discourage immigration to Britain, or do they come across as though they are encouraging it? Any European who only arrived in this country at Christmas can apply under this scheme for pre-settlement status. Then, after 5 years, they'll be eligible for British citizenship. Hurry up, lads. This offer is only available for a limited period. In addition to the millions of Europeans who have arrived since the referendum was held, There are, of course, another 3 million Chinese people in Hong Kong who have now been given the right to come to Britain and become citizens. Don't expect a halt to millions of new immigrants just yet. What Priti Patel and her chums are doing is playing a classic version of the three-card trick. She talks about the asylum seekers crossing the English Channel and gets people worked up and worried about them. While they are fretting about this trifling number of people, she allows 2 million foreigners to land here and stay for good, becoming British citizens. That number, 2 million, is of course about 100 times as many people who have crossed the Channel in the same period in small boats. In short, she is making sure that everybody looks at a trivial problem affecting less than 1% of the immigration to this country, while at the same time arranging for something enormously bigger to take place. Not only that, but on the government's own website, which nobody looks at, of course, so very few people read what she's saying, she is rejoicing in and boasting about all those millions of extra foreigners who have come here, only just come here, I should say, and are likely to stay forever. You've seen nothing yet, though. Just wait until those millions of Chinese start to arrive from Hong Kong. If this is a Home Secretary who is opposed to immigration, then I suppose we should be thankful we don't have one who's in favour of it.